Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1243, 1243, September 17th, 2020, Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's go ahead and cover the last 24 hours of Spygate news. And let's start with something I talked about yesterday. So it looks like Ron Johnson's committee has voted in a 8-6 vote to authorize the subpoena of about 40 Obama administration officials, which would include the fat man, Stefan Halper, Sidney Blumenthal, Cody Shearer, Jonathan Weiner, the whole gang. Brennan, Clapper, Comey. He wants to, and these of course would be depositions, and they would be behind closed doors. It's a little late. I mean, 2.5, 3 years ago, this would have been a fantastic idea. But right now, you know, it's a little bit too little, a little bit too late probably. But I guess better than nothing. So I don't really know the names of who the... Of course, we can assume all the Democrats voted against. I'm not sure if there were any Republicans that voted against or not. But anyway, Ron Johnson has gotten the votes he needs to subpoena these 40 former Obama administration officials and others, which I said includes some of the players like Halper, Blumenthal, Weiner, Shearer, and these characters. So that's very good news. And of course, because these are closed-door depositions, and you have to assume a lot of these people now at this stage of the game with the Durham investigation going on, you have to assume at this point that that a lot of these people probably will show up with a lawyer or two, and they'll probably be advised to plead the fifth, or maybe not on every question, but probably a lot of the questions. I don't expect any of these people to come in and incriminate themselves, but it sounds like what Johnson's done is he took a look at all the testimony from the House Intelligence Committee. He's taken a look at what's come out through the IG report. He's taken a look at a lot of that type of stuff. He wanted the depositions from the Senate Intelligence Committee, but Marco Rubio and Mark Warner are blocking him from doing that, as we talked about yesterday. But I think what he's trying to do here is that he wants to take, especially a lot of these people who've already been interviewed, and most of these people already have been interviewed by the House Intelligence Committee or some other committee or by the Inspector General or whatever, that he wants to try to say, okay, well, when you were questioned 2 years ago or what have you, you said this, but today with new information we know this is true. So what's the deal? You know, that sort of thing. I think it's he's trying to do some gotcha hearings, and which is exactly why I think at this state of the game a lot of these people will plead the fifth, or else they simply, I mean, I don't think they can really ignore the subpoena. I think they have to answer the subpoena, but then again, they can answer the subpoena, they can show up, but they also have the right to choose not to speak. So I think that you'll see a lot of that going on. But it tells you a lot. So God knows when, if ever, we will actually see these transcripts of these depositions, if they occur. But it's news, so I'm telling you about it. A couple of years ago, it would have been dandy. So we had the story that came out yesterday that Attorney General Barr was on a call with a bunch of, I guess, a bunch of prosecutors or what have you from various states. And turned out to be a pretty big news story because apparently Barr told these prosecutors that they should charge these violent rioters with sedition. Sedition. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the penalty is for sedition, but I would assume that's very, very, it's a very, very serious federal crime. I would think that that's a minimum of probably somewhere around 15 years. Minimum. 15 to life, probably. You could probably get a lifetime sentence for sedition, depending on, you know, the particulars of it. I don't know that any of these people would get that, but you're talking about many, many years in federal prison if you are found guilty. And So depending on what your financial resources are, I wouldn't want to be a relatively poor person running up against the Department of Justice without millions of dollars to be able to pay very good lawyers when the federal government's pursuing sedition charges against me. And I'm sure it wouldn't be the only crime. That'd be just one of many. So, yeah, that's getting serious about things, charging people with sedition. But if you, and I did take the time to kind of just do a quick look at the Google search definition of sedition, and these rioters would certainly meet that definition. They would meet the definition of sedition, and it's probably what Barr did. He probably looked at the law and said, do these people meet the law? And he probably read it and said, yep. A lot of them would. A lot of them would meet the criteria required to achieve a sedition charge. I'm all for it. Go for it. I'd like to just deport them all. Just deport them. Find out which commie country they want to go to and send them there. China, North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela. Find out where they want to go. One-way ticket. Just get rid of them. Get them out of the country. That's what I would do. If I got these people for sedition, I don't want to spend $50 grand a year to pay for these people to sit in federal prison. If they are found guilty of sedition, I will give them a one-way ticket to the communist country of their choice. I hope they did their homework. So we had on Conservative Treehouse yesterday a story informing us, and it's the only place I saw this story, and it's a fairly important story, but again, this is the kind of thing that doesn't show up on mainstream news because it's over most people's head. They wouldn't understand it or know how it applies or why it's meaningful, but I know that all of you would. So let's go ahead and talk about this. And what I'm talking about is that the DNI, John Ratcliffe, yesterday released the FISA court response to DOJ requests. So the DOJ, and this is in regards to the FISA issues, the DOJ had sent a letter to the DOJ had sent a letter of request to the FISA court, and there were 6 requests. 6 requests, and they were all granted. They were all granted. There are some stipulations, but they were essentially all granted. So without getting too deep into the weeds, because it gets kind of complicated and kind of on the legal side of things, and some of it's probably not necessarily related to exactly what we're talking about. So I'm just going to kind of fill you in on the things that were relative to specifically the Durham investigation, which is where this is coming from. So in this response from the FISA court to the DOJ, the FISA court acknowledged, the FISA court did acknowledge that all 4 of the Carter Page FISAs were corrupt. The specific words that they used were, quote, violations of the government's duty of candor. Yes, candor. It's a new word in Washington for lie. The government acknowledges that all 4 of the Carter Page FISA warrants were corrupt. Violations of the government's duty of candor. They lied on all 4 Carter Page FISAs. Carter Page should be a very rich man. I don't know what he's waiting for. So there you go. Also, we have that the Department of Justice had requested guidance for distribution of material to John Durham for criminal prosecution or possible evidence gathering attached to other ongoing investigative needs. So this is relating to one of the requests, which was a request for certain types of materials, which I'll spare you the legal mumbo jumbo. It's material that is held in a place which is very secret on a certain type of a database where you really have to have a high level of permission and need to know to access. and they have been given that access. And its request for guidance for the distribution of material to the John Durham criminal prosecutions or possible evidence gathering attached to other ongoing investigative needs. We also learn from this letter that John Durham wants access to the Sentinel system. The Sentinel system. Durham wants the Carter Page case file. The original. Not the doctored one from the Mueller investigation. What does this tell us? This tells us that Durham is absolutely investigating the Mueller investigation. This and another item tells us that Durham is investigating the Mueller investigation. He's wanting to go back to this original Sentinel system, which is a database which contains everything original. It's got it all the original stuff that would have been filed. Not the stuff that can be made up or edited or modified or anything like that, or created after the fact, which is what we believe happened with some of these 302s. We know there was editing. We know the Woods file may have been created after the fact by the Mueller team. So what Durham wants to do is go back and get the very original stuff and compare it to the stuff that we've been shown so far. And that could be in relating to 302s on Flynn, 302s on Misfit or anyone else. Could be information on Misfit. There could be information there about sourcing, things like that. So, yeah, Durham wants to get down into the deep underbelly of the evidence, you might say. Yeah, this Durham investigation is not going to be wrapped up by the election, that's for sure. It's going to go on for quite a while because he's just now getting permission. So it'll take a while for this information to come out. So yeah, there's not going to be a finding by Durham before the election by any stretch. Could be another year with how deep of a dive he's taking. So yeah, Durham wants to access the Sentinel system. He wants the Carter Page case file, the original. He wants to see if there was an original Woods file of, or if the special counsel created it after the fact. And he wants to know if the dossier was substituted for the Woods file, which is exactly what we all suspect. Durham also wants to compare the raw intelligence. This is why he wants the stuff out of Sentinel. He wants to compare the raw intelligence to the intelligence that actually made its way into the Sentinel system. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that he's digging into the Mueller investigation. That's exactly what it tells us. And here is also, there was an interview with John Solomon, I believe it was on Sean Hannity, I think on radio, where he did basically confirm that his sources are suggesting to him that Durham, the investigation will not be wrapped up before the election, and that he is still digging deep. Yeah, and I think that's pretty obvious after this release, showing us that Durham is he's wanting to dig even deeper. So he's obviously finding things or he wouldn't be wanting to do this. If Durham didn't have a pretty damn good case going, he would go ahead and end it now. There's no way that the guy is working on this thing for almost 2 years and he's not finding anything, so he's just trying to dig and dig to see what he can find. It's not a witch hunt. He's obviously got evidence that suggests he needs to go further to be able to make his case. And I think he wants to make an airtight case. I think he wants to bring indictments, but I think he wants to slam every door shut, which is what we hear about Durham. He's a very, very meticulous investigator who leaves no stone unturned, and he doesn't like to lose. And he knows he's going to be going up against a hostile jury, most likely, in D.C. I kind of wonder why, this investigation is really being conducted out of Connecticut. He's got people down in Washington, D.C., but Durham is in Connecticut. Most of his team is in Connecticut. The people he's got down in D.C. Are people who are on loan. and he's got a couple people he sent there. And then the other 4 U.S. attorneys, they're all back in their states. They're working on this, but they're in their own states. So none of these people are around D.C. other than the hired help. The top tier people are all other places. Jensen's in Missouri. Bash is in Texas. You have the one guy, the Italian guy who specializes in RICO. He's in Eastern District of Virginia, I think. Then you've got, of course, Durham and Connecticut. So I don't know why they can't bring these charges in the jurisdiction state where they are. I don't know why these charges have to be brought in D.C. But clearly Durham is digging away, and this thing's not going to be wrapped up by the election. No way. So I guess that would suggest why they're talking about an interim report. And it'll be interesting, like I said yesterday, it'll be interesting to see how Barr handles an interim report. I mean, when you're right in the middle of an investigation, the last thing that you want to do is tell people who you are or could be investigating what you know. I mean, they go to great lengths to make sure. I mean, this is like, it's like leaking out everything about what they know in the investigation, but it's not actually a leak. It's actually a statement or a report of some sort. And it just seems to go against the grain of what... I mean, Durham has to be just twisting right now at this. He can't be happy. I mean, I think he understands it's a difficult position, because I think Barr and Durham, the last thing they want to do is come out and disclose where their investigation is. I guarantee they don't want to do that. But on the other hand, you have this other part of it, which is that the voters have a right to know what happened 4 years ago. And so it's balancing the voters' right to know along with balancing that with a prosecutor's right to conduct an investigation in the way that a prosecutor wants to conduct an investigation, which is not to disclose what he knows or is learning or is investigating. It's going to be very, very tricky how this is done. And again, as I said yesterday, it's even trickier if you're Barr and Durham, and in this interim report, you have to come out and say, that there were crimes committed, but then you don't follow up with charges. That will rankle people even more. And he's certainly not going to come out and do an interim report to say, well, we don't have anything. Maybe he's going to have to say, the investigation is still ongoing. We have determined that, there were lots of violations, and that the case is ongoing, but that at this point we can absolutely tell for sure that the investigation into Trump wasn't properly predicated. They continued to pursue him even afterwards, knowing that. They went and got 4 FISAs on an American citizen when they knew from day one, 2 months before they even got the first one, that Carter Page was not an asset of the Russians or cooperating with the Russians or working with the Russians or anything like that. In other words, they went on with these investigations when they knew that there was nothing to them. So it's going to be very, very... You talk about tap dancing and landmine here. This is definitely tap dancing through the landmine. How you do this without blowing yourself up. And keep in mind, for all the abuse that Barr is going to suffer when he comes out and says, yeah, there were crimes committed essentially, or we believe, or we have evidence of the crimes committed, what have you, but then he doesn't follow up with indictments. Not only is he going to have the entire sort of right wing or Trump supporters all over his ass, day one, when he comes out and does this, the Democrats are going to go ape shit, and the media is going to be all over Barr and Durham. They'll be looking to have impeachment hearings, impeach Barr, remove Durham. They'll turn this into a grand spectacle if Biden loses, or I should say when Biden loses the actual election. Now, who wins the court battles, remains to be seen. But once Biden gets his ass kicked in the election, they'll probably say, see, it was, Barr and Durham. They Of course, Ron Johnson's going to come out next week, supposedly, and make it publicly known, along with supporting documents, that Burisma paid a $7 million bribe, and that the Obama administration, as well as specifically Biden's people, his staff, were well aware of it. And we're even hearing that the Department of Treasury may have actually had an open investigation into this. Obama's Treasury Department investigating this bribe. I mean, all these things are going to be very damaging. In a lot of ways, I think Barr and Durham are probably the type of characters. I mean, they're both in their 70s or whatever. They've got long careers. These may be the type of guys that just don't give a damn, quite honestly. And they know that they may take some heat on the front end if they don't indict some people, because they're already under a lot of heat, a lot of people complaining. But maybe they think that they'll be vindicated by Trump supporters once they finally finish up and actually take care of business and put the coup plotters in prison. So maybe they think that they'll be, when it's all wrapped up, that they'll be vindicated by Trump and his supporters or whatever, but certainly will be hated for eternity by the demon left. And but at this point, I think, again, Barr and Durham, they've been around a long time. They're seasoned gentlemen, been around this business a very long time. It's not like they've never taken heat or pressure over cases they've worked on. This will certainly be dwarf anything that they've ever experienced in their lives. But if you're Barr and Durham, you know that you're going to get caught up in a shitstorm, regardless of which way you go. So if it's me, and I know that I'm going to get caught up in a shitstorm, regardless of which way I go, I might as well go with doing the right thing. You're going to be covered in shit when it's all over with anyway. This last thing I want to talk about is very, very troubling. It's very, very troubling. Will not surprise any of you. Washington Examiner Daniel Chaitin. So Chaitin is writing this article yesterday in the Washington Examiner, where he's obviously gotten a copy of Woodward's book, Bob Woodward's book, which I don't know if it's been released yet. It's about to be released or whatever. But we've been hearing some things been getting leaked out about Woodward's book. Of course, the most talked about thing in the last week or so has been about Woodward talking about this conversation between Mattis and Dan Coates, where Mattis tells Dan Coates regarding Trump, we may have to, get rid of Trump, basically. I forget exactly what word he used, but he suggested that they needed to might have to take some sort of action to get rid of Trump. This is Mattis talking to Dan Coates, and that's been getting a lot of play, and it should. It's if it's true, then Mattis should be unretired and brought back in to the military and court-martialed. I don't know if he was talking about executive action or what type of action he was talking about to get rid of the president. I'll leave that up to your imagination. So Woodward writes this book, and he apparently has either interviewed Gina Haspel or someone who has this information. This is very disturbing. So it appears that right after A.G. Barr came in as Attorney General, and of course we know that he put the kibosh on the Mueller probe pretty quickly, shut that down, got that over with, and he had already, before the Mueller investigation had even been shut down, he had already tapped John Durham. Now this came out months and months ago, and it actually came out by a left-wing publication, and they were complaining about the fact that, Barr didn't waste a day appointing Durham. In fact, he probably already had talked to Durham before he even became Attorney General and said, hey, man, I'm about to become Attorney General, and as soon as I do, I'm appointing you to, investigate this. That's kind of the narrative of the story that was written in the left-wing rag. Whether or not that's the case, I don't know. But we do know that Barr contacted Durham within a week of when he was a Attorney General, and then made the actual appointment. And I think that Durham had already been tapped to look into something else prior to that, when Sessions was the AG. So he was already somewhat familiar with it. But we now learn that right after Barr gets into office as the Attorney General and gets confirmed and gets into his position, that shortly after that he appoints Durham, like within a week. He contacts Durham within a week. And sometime shortly after the appointment of Durham and announcing that he was going to have this investigation and look into what happened in 2016 and beyond, Gina Haspel and Dan Coates come to see Barr. They have a meeting. And Haspel lamented, that's Bob Woodward's term, Gina Haspel lamented how the Durham investigation would be a nightmare for the CIA. Haspel and Dan Coates then had requested this meeting with AG Barr after he appointed Durham to ask why an investigation was needed, and Haspel told Barr that it would have a negative effect on the agency, it would be very disruptive, and it would affect morale, and that some people were even wondering if they needed an attorney. She asked Barr not to pull any fast ones. She asked Barr to do his investigation in a way that would not cause a lot of problems. Also, Haspel asked Barr to keep her informed in terms of what he planned to do, and to keep her informed about what was happening. According to Woodward, Barr told Haspel not to worry. There was not a witch hunt, but said there is more out there and we just need to know what it is. He told Haspel, your people don't need to be concerned. Now, does Attorney General Barr know that Haspel was the section chief or station chief in London during 2016? And that was not her first, but her second appointment there by John Brennan? And that she was Brennan's, I guess you'd say star student? A protege? Under Brennan's wing? Brennan took very good care of Haspel. Apparently, from what I understand, the station chief position in London is the second best position in the CIA next to the director. And she was there once. Then during 2016, he sends her there again. As I have said before, it is nearly impossible that the station chief of the CIA in London would not have known about all the things that were happening in London in 2016, especially if they were any part of a CIA operation. Because you don't go into the place, you don't go and conduct operations in the place where you have the head of that division, the CIA, and conduct operations in her jurisdiction without telling her. Because people step on people's toes, a lot of bad things happen. And including even if the FBI were involved, they would have said, oh, well, we better alert the CIA station chief of what's going on with this investigation. I find it nearly impossible to believe that Haspel didn't at the very least know about the things that were going on there. And, of course, we know that she is a very close associate of Mr. Potato Head. We can only assume that she thinks like he does. And she's now, as I say, when Trump made her the CIA director, I was speechless. I was like, a simple Google search would have told you that's a bad idea. It's the only thing that Trump has a big problem with is people he appoints to very key positions. I mean, he's appointed some. I mean, he's put the you know, the very people who would stab him in the back. He's appointed most of them, including both of these clowns. I mean, Haspel and Dan Coates were both Trump appointments. Dan Coates is certainly a slimeball, isn't he? Never did like that guy. So I can't imagine that Attorney General Barr does not know that Haspel was the CIA section chief in London in 2016, and that she is very, very close to John Brennan. And if he does know that, I wonder what his thoughts are on that. Now, it's funny because Haspel asking him why the investigation was needed. That's a stupid question if you're the CIA director. Because if you're the CIA director, you would know that the entire thing was a sham. You're the ones that told the FBI that Carter Page was not a Russian stooge. Yet they got 4 FISAs on him. Yet you're going to sit there as a CIA director and say, why do we need to have an investigation into that? Haspel told Barr it would have a negative effect on the agency. It would be very disruptive and would affect morale. Well, yeah, if you're part of the plotters. But if you're a straight-laced CIA agent, you'd want to clean the bad elements out of the agency. You'd welcome something like this. It wouldn't affect my morale if I was clean. It would only affect my morale, my attitude, if I was crooked, like Gina Haspel. Sounds like Gina Haspel was worried about her own ass here. She was there to cover her own ass. I don't think she gives a damn about the rank and file guy working in the CIA. Ask Barr not to pull any fast ones? What the hell does that mean? Like investigate her? Ask Barr to do it in a way that would not cause a lot of problems. Well, if you haven't done anything wrong, you don't have anything to worry about. Isn't that what we're always told when they spy on us? Investigate us? Question us? I think she was worried about it causing her a lot of problems. Then she's asking Barr to keep her informed in terms of what he planned to do and to keep her informed about what was happening. Well, you know, if you were involved in the dirty business, I'm pretty sure they're not going to tell you when they're investigating you, find out that you're involved in the dirty business. They're probably going to pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, who we just found out? You want me to keep you informed? Yeah, we just found out that you were an instrumental part of the coup attempt. Gina? I don't think so. Clearly, she was worried about something. And when Barr tells her, your people don't need to be concerned, well, maybe her people don't need to be concerned, but my guess is she should be. No way she was the head of the CIA in London in 2016 and did not know about what was going on. No way. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be back when there's more news to report. See you. Bye.